It's the first week of the high school football playoffs officially, right? 11B, 9-man, started last week. But now as we go into this next week, it's a Halloween night, 7 classes, all playoff games. Let's jump right into 11 AAA here. Ian Sachs and Grant Sweeter to kind of break down what we're going to see this week. Ian, Brandon Valley earning the top seed. They looked really good, getting a couple of wins late over big teams. Harrisburg, 2 losses entering the playoffs.
Well, it's interesting how Brandon Valley, in their last game, faced Jefferson. Both of them locked into their seats. Brandon Valley was going to be the 1, Jefferson the 4. And Brandon Valley still played with a lot to play for in their game. A dominant win this past Thursday over Jefferson in the last game of the regular season. They're looking really good. They knocked off Harrisburg in that 1 versus 2 matchup, highly anticipated in the second to last game of the regular season. So the Lynx rolling into the playoffs. Harrisburg slipping a little. They were 1 all season long. Certainly. And then you mentioned losing their last 2 games of the regular season. 2
toughest games for the end of the year, but losses to Brandon Valley and Lincoln, and both by double digits. So we'll see how Harrisburg can bounce back with Roosevelt. The game I'm looking for here, usually it's the 4 or 5 matchup, and that's what it is. Jefferson and O'Gorman separated by 1 game in the standings. Jefferson beat them by 20, but that's the last time O'Gorman lost. They've won 4 in a row, taking advantage of the easier part of their schedule, but you're supposed to, right? You're supposed to win the games that you should win, and that's exactly what to do. We'll see that one on Thursday night. Now let's move into 11 AA here. This class is wide open. Now Yankton at the last second here, last couple weeks trying to be that favorite in the class, but all of a sudden you got Pierre with a couple nice wins to end the season, and they find themselves a top 4 seed.
Well, think about that potential semifinal matchup. I don't want to look too far ahead, but certainly we could see a state championship rematch in the semis down in Yankton. That certainly would be one to circle, but the Bucks elevating themselves, they were motivated by that loss in the Dome last year. They get all the way to the Dome, lose to Pierre, 7-time state champion in the Governors. But the bottom half of the bracket, I feel like, is incredibly wide open between Watertown, Huron, Brookings, T area. I feel like we could see any of those 4 teams coming out to the Dome.
Hey, I like 2 matchups in this one. Pierre Spearfish, they just played 2 weeks ago. Pierre won out in Spearfish. And then that Brookings T game. I'm really intrigued to see what that's going to do. 2 really good defenses, 2 offenses that kind of struggle. Be a defensive game. First to 10 points might win that game. But that's really good football this time of year, right? Playing some defensive football. I look forward to those 2, but no doubt Yankton playing as good as anybody in the state right now. Let's turn into 11A now, and a little switch up in the bracket last second because Del Rapids defeated Lennox on Thursday night. A big win for the Couriers. They looked really good. Dakota Valley now is who Del Rapids has to play. Dakota Valley, we go all the way back to week 1, already beat Del Rapids and had a 2-point loss to Sioux Falls Christian. So the Panthers, not your average 7 seed in this case, but I think, Ian, Sioux Falls Christian, they've run the table, had a close win over Dakota Valley, but they've looked good all year.
Well, and as the state champions in Del Rapids, they kind of, we didn't know what to expect from them this year, but they're playing some of their best football as of late, and it should be really fun. I feel like we could see any type of matchups here. Sioux Falls Christian's been the top team just about all season long, and as you mentioned, that 2-point win over Dakota Valley to close the season. Really interesting to see how they bounce back, how Certainly. They respond to that. Was that a bit of a wake-up call? Did that awake a sleeping giant? We'll see what the Chargers look like in the playoffs.
I got to point out, because not often is the 2-7 matchup maybe the game to watch, but I think it is, right? I mean, Dakota Valley's coming off their most impressive loss of the year. They've already beaten Del Rapids. I think that 2-7 game is one you got to circle. I also really like the West Central Madison game. That's going to be a close game. Lennox has played Canton, already blew them out. Doesn't mean Canton can't come back. And Christian has had success against Rapid City Christian as well, as all those teams getting set for Thursday's quarterfinals. Let's move into 11B now, and this is a little bit different because we have 2 brackets to look at. So we're starting in the top half of the bracket here, Ian. Sioux Valley, Mobridge Pollock, Elk Point Jefferson, Clark Willow Lake winning. Mobridge Pollock, the only one kind of an upset, only 1 seed. And that sets up our quarterfinals of Sioux Valley versus Mobridge Pollock. And a game I'm really interested in, Elk Point Jefferson, Clark Willow Lake.
Elk Point Jefferson has been one of the top teams all season long, but they are a team that could be dangerous should they get hot in throughout the playoffs. And Sioux Valley has looked good just about all season long as well, and looked good in that win against Dual. It was closer than one might think, seeing a 1-16 matchup, but still a big win for the Cossacks up there.
Well, in Sioux Valley, a team every year it seems like they're battling to make the Dome, haven't made it since 1988. So, needless to say, they're a powerhouse, but it's time to get to the Dome, and this year's team might be the team to do it. Let's move over to the bottom half of this bracket now. Winner, Woonsocket, Wessington Springs, Sanborn Central. Mount Vernon, Plankington, and St. Thomas More winners, and some really interesting scores here. Woonsocket, Wessington Springs wins by 1. Mount Vernon, Plankington wins by 8, and then winner and St. Thomas More win big.
I don't know what to make out of those games. The 1-point game, toss-up game right there.
Certainly.
Coming down to an extra point, really. And then an 8-0 game. You don't see very many of those in the high school games. So Mount Vernon and Plankington getting the score that they needed and that shutout. That's impressive anytime you get to the playoffs, no matter who you're playing, whether it's a 3-14 matchup like that one was or an 8-9 later. And Winter has been among the top teams all season long. I think that they are a team to definitely watch out for in this bottom portion of the bracket.
Tough road for any of these 4 teams to make it, though. There's some good teams. 3 of them ended up in the final rankings of the season. Let's turn to 9-man now. It's 9AA, where Parkston, Leola Frederick area, Hill City, and Freeman Marion Freeman Academy all earn first-round wins and move on. Most of them in lopsided fashion. We see Leola Frederick won by just 8. But I tell you what, that Hill City, Freeman Marion Freeman Academy game, that could be a pretty good game between the 4 and the 5 seed.
Well, I feel like whenever you get to the quarterfinals, you look at those 4-5 matchups.
Certainly.
That's always where your eyeball goes of saying, okay, what's that matchup? Who's the team that probably has the toughest matchup in the quarterfinals, and who's a team that might not make it to the semifinals that you might have had your eye on throughout the season? But Parkston has been a dominant team all season long, and with a 50-point win in the first round, certainly looking like it.
Leola Frederick area are going to have their hands full on Halloween night. Could be a little spooky for them, but I tell you what, spooky good, Hill City and Freeman Marion Freeman Academy. I'm looking forward to that game. Let's go to the bottom half of 9AA, and you have Hamlin taking on Viborg Hurley. Those 2 teams won. Elkton Lake Benton and Hanson winning. Hanson an upset by 1 point. Viborg Hurley a 4-point win over Britton Hecla. And now Hanson, Viborg Hurley, great congrats on the narrow wins. Here's 2 of the best teams in the state. Hamlin's undefeated, and Elkton Lake Benton only has 1 loss, a 5-point loss to Hamlin 2 weeks ago.
Should they meet up in the semifinals, that is going to be an epic game. Of course, we have the quarterfinals coming up on Halloween, but Hamlin and Elkton Lake Benton looking all the bit of 2 of the top teams in the state, both with 50-point shutout victories. But that Viborg game over Britton Hecla was a great game. We had highlights.
Maybe the best 9-man game of the whole first round, honestly.
Absolutely. And then, of course, anytime it's a 1-point game, Hanson, nice upset victory. But, of course, as you mentioned, a tough prize in now having to face Elkton Lake Benton.
Yeah, those are really 2 good teams. And I've loved what I've seen from Hamlin. I've loved what I've seen from Elkton Lake Benton. These are 2 of the top teams in the state, and you could make an argument for which one of them gets a chance to dethrone Parkston. That's going to be the question. But Hamlin brought back a ton of talent from last year. They're a team to watch. Let's move into 9A now. And as you look here, Wall, Castlewood, Woolsey, Wessington, and Dupree picking up wins. And I don't think there's much of a surprise. Castlewood with that comeback over Elsa Southern, that was a great game as well. And then the rest kind of went blowouts. Dupree, a blowout and an upset. But Wall's the team to circle here. They're playing as good as anybody. And Chester's competed against some teams over here. They go over to Wall, and Wall blasts them.
Wall, another team that has been on everyone's radar throughout this season. And when you started off with a 50-point shutout win in the playoffs, that will raise some eyeballs, even if you're the number 1 seed and projected to make it all the way to the Dome. Still, putting up a 50-burger in a shutout victory, that draws some attention. And how about Dupree coming in as the 12th seed and winning by 22 points at Hardin County Bison? one of the teams that was ranked in the top 5 this year.
And supposed to make a little bit of a playoff run,
Yeah.
or a team that could have.
Right, and now Dupree, they're one of those lower seeds that if they get hot, they could make a bit of a run.
Last year we saw Dubrook area, a 7 seed, make a run all the way to the Dome. I'm not saying a 12 seed can, but just showing you that sometimes that thing can happen. Let's turn to the bottom half of the bracket here, and there's a name that some people might be familiar with. Howard, 54-point win. It wasn't a shutout, but still a 54-point win. Ipswich wins big. Warner wins big. Phillip wins by a couple of scores. And Warner and Howard, 2 unbeatens in this. That's the 2 teams people are watching on this side of the bracket.
Well, it would be fun should they meet up in the semifinals, but they're going to have some tough tests in Ipswich and Phillip before getting to the semifinals should they advance. And, that Howard 60 burger, highest point total we've seen that we saw in that first round so far. So certainly an impressive win for them. But yeah, of course, it would be a lot of fun should they advance all the way to the semifinals.
Yeah, 3 really good teams that were undefeated. Anytime you got 3 teams undefeated, that means one of them won't make the Dome if they all get to the semifinals. You know what I mean? Moving on to 9B now, and it's our last class to take a look at. And Ian, I knew this was coming, but to one-up you, Avon put 67 up on Jones County. They move on. Canastota wins big. They move on. Corsica Stickney was tight early, but then pulled away big. And Selly Buttes rolls Arlington. So here you go. The first round of 9B, blowouts in this part of the bracket. Now here's 4 good teams moving into the second round and some very highly anticipated, including Avon and Canastota. Avon, we know, the #1 powerhouse. But Canastota is a staple every year. They're one of the best teams. And here they got to meet in the 1 versus 8. This is going to be a really good game.
Avon winning the state championship last year and bringing back a ton of pieces. And, they have been the top team all year long. But, now it's that new blood versus kind of tradition, as you mentioned, with Canastota. Canastota has been to the playoffs so many times. They're always so tough, a tough out at any point in the playoffs. So, for Avon to go back-to-back, that is going to be a big test. It only feels right that they would have to go through Canastota.
Avon, by the way, you say bring back guys, Isaiah Meyer. That name sound familiar? Maybe one of the best running backs in all of 9-man football. Yeah, he's a big reason they can score 60 points a game. And turning to our final point of the brackets, it's 9B, the bottom portion here. Faulkton area, Coleman Egan winning. Coleman Egan, a 40-point, call it an upset. There's 7-10s, the way the seedings can. So technically, it's an upset. Del Rapids St. Mary put up 60. They looked really good against Irene Wakanda, and Kadoka area wins big as well. So I think everyone knew Faulkton area and Del Rapids St. Mary are the 2 teams to keep an eye out for on this side of the bracket. They both take care of their jobs, but now they got 2 teams that looked really good in the first round, too.
They certainly did, and blowout victories means that you're playing right at the right time.
Sure.
Gaining that momentum in that first round and to make a run at it, that's what you want to do. But Faulkton area and Del Rapids St. Mary both with impressive victories. They're 2 and 3 in the seeds for a reason and showed every bit of it in that first round win.
Yeah. St. Mary's loss, by the way, was from a class higher than them. That's their only loss. Faulkton's got 2 losses to some tough teams as well. So those 2 teams really looking forward to it. Now, again, we will have coverage of the playoffs, the quarterfinals, on Halloween night when KELOLAND Sports Zone, for the last time, is on a Thursday. That's right. 10:15, we'll have coverage of that. We'll also have a live game for you with that on KELO Extra and on KELOLAND.com. Thanks for watching.